At 7 a.m., the lake was a mirror, its surface undisturbed, except for the faint mist curling upward in the cool dawn. I was on my porch, cradling a mug of coffee, when a voice shattered the silence like a gunshot. "Get that junk off the water, Daniel." It was Linda, a peroxide blonde HOA enforcer in a neon tracksuit, hollering from across the lake, as if she were commanding an army. "It's against the rules," her words echoed, startling birds from the trees. My boat, a modest aluminum skiff with a quiet outboard, sat tied to my dock, which, by the way, was on my private shoreline. Linda didn't know that. I sipped my coffee, squinting through the haze. "Morning, Linda," I called back, voice steady. "Want to try that with less screaming?" She stormed up my gravel drive, orthopedic sandals crunching like she owned the ground beneath her. "I don't care about your manners, Daniel Harper." The HOA voted. "Your boat violates Section 7, Article 4. No watercraft in community areas." I raised an eyebrow. "This dock's on my land." Her face tightened. "It's on the lake, and that lake's ours. Your rust heap's an eyesore, and the fishing club says it scares the bass." I nearly choked on my coffee, laughing. "Scares the bass? Linda, that boat's quieter than your karaoke nights." She didn't flinch. "You've got 72 hours to move it, or it's $100 a day." I nodded slowly. "You do that?" She spun around, marching back to her golf cart, a one-woman parade of smugness. That's when I knew it was time to end this. See, 20 years ago, I bought this land from a retiring farmer. The lake came with it, every inch of water, every foot of shore. The HOA never checked the county records. They assumed the lake was community property. I let them believe it, letting neighbors fish and paddle because I didn't care, until now. Inside, I pulled a manila folder from my safe. The deed, water rights, surveyor's map, all airtight. The lake was mine. The fishing club was trespassing. The dock was private, and their rules didn't apply. I'd ignored it for years, but Linda's ultimatum changed everything. The next morning, I planted a sign at the lake's entrance. "Private property, no access without permission." By noon, Linda was back, this time with a guy in a coral polo, his comb-over defying physics. "This is Tom," she said, chest puffed. "HOA Vice President." Tom offered a limp handshake. "Daniel, let's de-escalate. The fishing clubs used the lake for 15 years without my permission," I said. Tom coughed. "We assumed." "You assumed wrong," I cut in. "And after you threatened fines for my boat on my water, I'm closing the lake to the HOA. Effective now." Linda's face went from pale to scarlet. "You can't." "I can, and I did. Hope your base like other lakes." She looked ready to explode. "This is war, Daniel." I leaned in. "Careful. Threats get the sheriff involved. I've got documents ready to frame." They stormed off, Tom muttering about the board. I watched them go, already planning my next move. Linda wouldn't quit, and neither would I. By the next HOA meeting, the neighborhood was electric. The sign, the closed lake, the fishing club's eviction. People were livid, but not at me. Once word spread that the HOA never owned the lake, questions piled up. Why were dues funding a lake they didn't control? Why had Linda spent thousands on paddle boats last year? Turns out, the fishing club was her pet project, siphoning HOA funds for gear, fish stocking, even catered parties. I stayed quiet, letting the chaos brew. 3 days later, a letter arrived, taped to my door like a petty taunt, stamped with the HOA's logo. It accused me of restricting community resources and uncooperative behavior harmful to harmony. Signed by Linda and 3 board members I barely knew. I read it twice, poured some sweet tea, and smiled. They were scared. I called the county assessor and environmental commission, pulling every record tied to the lake. The land plat, water rights, a 32-year-old zoning note, all confirmed the lake was never community property. It was mine. Bought outright. Then I noticed something odd. Workers in orange vests were at the lake's south edge, pounding stakes, unrolling fencing. I strolled over, phone recording in my pocket. "What's this?" I asked. A worker shrugged. "Shoreline restoration. HOA President Linda hired us." I blinked. "This is my land." "Who gave permission?" He pointed to Linda's name on the work order. I held up a hand. "Stop now. This is trespassing. I own this. Keep going, and I call the sheriff." He sighed, and within 20 minutes, they were packing up. Across the street, Linda watched from her golf cart, arms crossed, silent. That afternoon, I filed a complaint with the sheriff for attempted encroachment. 2 deputies visited Linda the next morning. From my porch, I saw her arms flailing as she argued, Tom looking like he wanted to vanish. They left, and Linda stayed quiet. But then Sarah, a neighbor and HOA treasurer, reached out. Over coffee at a diner, she spilled everything. Linda had locked her out of financial records, approved a vague $3,500 aquatic enhancement expense, and bullied the members. Sarah slid me a folder, vendor payments, checks to shadowy companies like Lake Services, endorsed by a Kevin R. The address on one check led to an apartment, not an office. "You want to expose this, don't you?" I asked. Sarah nodded. "But I need backup." We waited 72 hours. I gathered my deeds, photos of the fencing crew, a timeline. Sarah built a spreadsheet of HOA spending discrepancies. We sent letters, hand-delivered to every household, detailing the lake issue, Linda's spending, and calling for an emergency meeting. Saturday's turnout was huge. Over 60 people crammed into the community center. Sarah spoke first, calm, exposing the financial holes. I followed, explaining the lake's true ownership, the HOA's overreach, and the trespassing workers. The room went silent. Then a man in flannel stood. "Where's the money?" Sarah replied. "We'll find out." Linda jumped up, voice shrill. "This is a personal attack. They're sabotaging the HOA." But neighbors rose, questions flying. Why no financial transparency? Why no permits? Why treat a private lake as public? Linda's shouts drowned in the uproar. A motion passed to suspend her and audit the books. Tom resigned on the spot. A temporary committee formed, with Sarah as chair. Within a week, bank statements were subpoenaed. Kevin R. was Linda's cousin, paid $18,000 for fake consulting. The sheriff arrested Linda for embezzlement. Her house hit the market in a month. I reopened the lake with rules. Sign a waiver. Follow my terms. People knocked, not to complain, but to thank me. Sarah and I met often. She led the new board, now aware of the map's boundaries. A subpoena arrived weeks later. I was a witness in the DA's case against the HOA. The summons revealed Linda's boldest move. 6 months prior, she'd filed forged papers to annex the lake, erasing my name from recorded maps. A clerk's sharp eye stopped it. At the DA's office, investigator Brooks grilled me. "Did the HOA ever mention annexation?" "Never," I said. "I'd have shut it down." He nodded. "Forging land records is a felony." He dropped a bomb. A shell company, Shoreline Solutions, tied to a Georgia account opened by Linda, siphoned HOA funds. My testimony and deeds were key. The audit uncovered $78,000 missing, fake landscaping, ghost materials, Linda's legal reimbursements. The neighborhood shifted. People talked, cleaned the lake, hung a sign, respect what's real. I got invites to barbecues, trivia nights. An old-timer, George, said, "Glad you held the line." They almost rewrote the truth. I nodded. Paperwork beats lies. The trial came. I testified first, boots on from that first morning. Linda avoided my gaze. Brooks walked me through the timeline: deeds, trespass, forgery. The defense lawyer, slick and young, pushed. "Is this personal, Mr. Harper?" Only after she tried stealing my land, I shot back. The jury took 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Linda got 8 years. Tom and another board member got probation. Sarah hosted a gathering after. No celebration, just closure. By the lake, she asked, "Will we be okay?" I smiled. "We already are." Truth won, she grinned. "Run for the board." I shook my head, eyeing the water. "I've got this." Winter crept in, frost glazing the dock. Fishing gear vanished. No one dared ask to use the lake. A typed note appeared under my wiper. "Linda's gone, but not all board members were clean. Check the equipment shed." I found it behind the tennis courts, rusted, padlocked. Inside, behind a false panel, were bins. One held unopened HOA dues checks, years old. Another had bank slips for a shadow account. The third, notebooks in messy cursive, logging secret meetings, transfers, a plan to erase Harper's claim. I turned it all over to Brooks. 2 more board members were arrested. The shadow account traced to $118,000 in stolen dues, spent on vacations, renovations, tuition. Linda's assets were seized for restitution. Sarah pushed to dissolve the HOA. In a landslide vote, it was gone, replaced by a voluntary trust. At the final meeting, Sarah read, "No title lets you rewrite truth." Silence followed. Not fear. Respect. George handed me cider by the lake. "It's a boundary," I said, "and a mirror." We toasted as dusk painted the water gold. I sat on my dock, the lake still reflecting what no one could steal. Note ***, this is the first part of the text. Reply with "continue" for the next part.